We're super excited to share with you folks what we've been working on. If there's a few things that we would like for you guys to take away from today's session, is we'd like to have a conversation with everyone around why we do what we do. And just to start off, just to let everyone know, at the core of our DNA, we fundamentally believe that every organization in our industry can and should operate as the most perfect version of themselves. Now, we understand that's a really, really big mission statement, and believe me, our team understands the exhaustion that we've had in terms of pursuing that mission statement. But we're really excited today to share with you folks the solutions that we've created to help enable every organization become the most perfect version of themselves. So as I was preparing for today's conversation, nervous jitters, I was trying to kind of minimize the 30-minute session, so I started contemplating approximately the 5.255 million minutes that I have spent in our industry from a consulting and an entrepreneurial perspective. That didn't really help. So what I then did is started thinking about everyone that I've met in the industry along the way, and it's just incredible how many experts and how much knowledge that we're knowledge rich in this industry. And so everyone that I've met has dedicated 25 to 30 plus years of their life, of their business careers to this great industry. And so that got me excited, really pumped up. And, you know, we want to say a special thank you to the I4Transport staff. You guys have put on an amazing event here for us this week. We really appreciate that. We'd also like to thank every person here and every organization represented. As we looked across the who's who list that is in attendance today, everyone here, every shipper, every 3PL, every technology provider, and every asset carrier that's represented here, you guys are the backbone of this industry. And so before we get into and we unpack the solutions that we're really excited to share with you guys, we just want to say that we're very humbled by the opportunity to share this stage with every one of you this entire week. So we really appreciate that. And so what we want to do from a goal perspective today, just to give you a short agenda. So we do want to unpack, we've kind of talked about why we exist. We definitely want to move into how we do what we do, and then the what is it, right? And so we believe as well, one of the things we're going to be introducing today to our industry is some new terminology, a new way of thinking, and somewhat of a better method and a new platform that's way more intelligent than what we've currently seen in the past. And so before we unpack all of those and before we address all the big topics that are circling our industry, such as big data management, digital transformation, which makes a lot of people just kind of curl just seeing that in writing, automation, visibility, there's just a lot of really, really big topics. And for those of you in the room who know me on a personal level, I think you definitely know that there's just zero chance we were going to actually take on a minuscule topic that would result in minuscule industry advancement. And so we definitely stepped up and took on some big topics, so hopefully we can clearly communicate how we plan to unpack that for everybody in our industry. And so before we get there, I'd definitely like to introduce our team. We have several of our staff members here that have joined us here this week, and can't say enough about this group. They are the smartest, most resilient individuals I've ever met. These guys, they wake up in the middle of the night, which is great. We love the dedication there. But there's one individual that we do want to recognize. He's the most recent addition to our team. He joins us with unbelievable industry experience, one of the most brilliant minds in the industry, David Knight. David, if you could raise your hand. David joins us from SMC3, where he was formerly their CTO, CIO. David joined SMC. They were doing about 100,000 data transactions a month. As he joined us, they're doing about 1.5 billion data transactions a month, which really fits where we see our organization heading. He's a competitive individual. Everyone on our team, super competitive. A lot of people have sports backgrounds, and they're just competitive in life. And so we're really excited and pleased to have David join us as our CIO in the organization.
Good morning, Spencer. Why is my name not mentioned on our team slide?
So meet Ty. Ty is also a member of our team. He is the only team member who has multiple patents around himself. So I guess he gets a bit antsy when he doesn't see his name in writing along with the rest of the executive team. So Ty, we'll actually, you're kind of one of the main featured attractions of today's conversation, so we'll kind of talk to you here shortly.
Oh, you are too kind. Talk with you
Spencer.
soon. My apologies for the interruption, but I still think you should have hit 6-iron yesterday instead of 7-iron
Here we
on
go.
hole 8 for your approach shot into the green. But you asked me not to talk again until we got to the back 9. Based on my real-time analysis of our elevation, our 2-degree slope up to the green, actual distance to the hole, barometric pressure, humidity, wind speed, wind direction, and other factors I brought to your attention. Had you hit 6-iron, then you had a 78.3% probability of making birdie on the hole.
Well, I get scolded quite often, but we still made par, Ty.
True. I am not designed to accept par results when a birdie is possible.
We hear that quite often as well. Well, Ty, you definitely have earned our trust from a company and a business and an industry perspective, but I kind of still own you on the golf course, so you're still earning my trust from your golf statistics.
We will get there soon enough. In the meantime, I will keep focusing my efforts on enabling all organizations across our great industry to operate as the most perfect version of themselves at all times.
Okay, great. Well, maybe we can move on without the golf situation here. Ty is, just to kind of unpack that briefly, is our industry's logistics version of, just as a reference point, Watson. Big difference is Ty has the ability not to just analyze business scenarios, logistics, and industry scenarios. He has the ability to execute on those decisions in real time, which a lot of organizations have, again, big topics, proactive versus reactive, communication gaps. There's a lot of mundane tasks that staff members in the organization take on from a day-to-day basis. And so as we think about increasing capacity and we think about all the expert knowledge in the industry to allow the experts in the organization to focus on the non-trivial tasks, Ty comes in as a very, very big extension of the organization from a consulting perspective. And so we're obviously really excited to have Ty part of the team as well. Hopefully I won't get scolded until he's up next time and a little bit later in the presentation. So one of the things that we want to do, we felt like it would be beneficial for us to kind of take a transition and a conversation over our history's timeline, our industry's timeline. And I'm a huge fan of Henry Ford, and so one of his famous quotes, he talks about, had I asked my customers what they were looking for, they would have said a faster horse. But obviously, he delivered a better method, right? He delivered a car, and for our industry, that means something as well. So he somewhat created a tipping point at that point in history of changing the method of how people got from point A to point B, which obviously led to our trucking industry, planes, trains, steamships. And so that mindset and that different way of thinking of saying, yes, we can take user enhancement requests, but at the end of the day, is there a better method, and can we deliver a better method? And so we liken the Henry Ford quote to a lot of what we've put together from a solution stack standpoint that we'll unpack during today's conversation. So, you know, as we think about the timeline, as we mentioned earlier, there's a trajectory in the industry, there's an evolution in the industry, and we think that we're at a point where we believe we can be a part and create a tipping point and the next evolution for our industry to advance it forward into the future. So, you know, we love the industry. Everybody on the team, they wake up. We knew David was an official member of our team when he texted me one morning pretty early. I've been in California working with our staff out in Southern California. He says, man, I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about 1,000 things. He started rattling off. So we knew he was officially hooked on the Kool-Aid in terms of, you know, we wake up at night thinking about how we can try and transition and help enable our industry advance into the future. We're just completely dedicated and super excited about that. So, you know, as we think about where we've come from and where we are currently, the computerization era, PCs and database and flexible spreadsheets came on the scene. There was a tech revolution in the 90s. A lot of acronyms were introduced during this period. And so, you know, we kind of see today, and we, again, sharing with you folks here in June, where we do see the trigger and the tipping point of a better methods era in terms of how we think, how we see platforms, and how we consume and digest those platforms. So a couple things to note: in the 60s and 70s, we saw our first inventory management system come on the scene. Then we saw the acronym WMS and the first warehouse management system come on the scene. So as we advanced into the 80s, we started seeing people introduce the terminology into our industry, supply chain management. So now we're all using that term on a day-to-day basis, which we think is pretty cool because we're going to introduce a new term here shortly. And so we saw the first cross-docking system come on the scene. As we progressed into the 90s, we saw TMS surface. We saw enterprise resource planning systems. So the acronyms, the TMS acronym, ERP acronym, and then the platform capability were all introduced to the organization, to the industry. And so, it's hard to believe that in 95, that was version 1.0 of Internet Explorer. So we've definitely, just as on a global scale, even outside of our industry, advanced so much further, so much faster due to the internet. So in 96, we saw the TMS advance due to internet capability, more in a client-server environment. And then in the 2000s, we saw, essentially the Internet of Things start to surface. Again, another acronym that was brought to our attention. And then in 06, 07, we saw Gartner and Forrester make a huge recommendation from a TMS perspective around we need to expand beyond one mode. So we need to contemplate not rail, not just LTL, not just truckload, but we need to expand that across all modes of shipping, both on a global scale as well as a local scale. And then in 08 and 2010 is when we started seeing mobile come on the scene, right? So 08, that really surfaced. We're going to talk a little bit about mobile. So we surfaced the statistics around this as well. And then in 2010, it was a word of the year, right? Not just in logistics, it was just the word of the year across all industries from a capability standpoint where people wanted to play games and they wanted to figure out how to manage data and have more visibility to data of the people who had control of it. So here's a sample. So in January of 2008, we can see the TMS Magic Quadrant from Gartner. And so as we kind of fast forward this view, a lot of great players on this screen, right? So we've had a lot of innovators, a lot of great technologies in our industry. A lot of them are represented here during our conference. And as we fast forward into current day in the March 2017 Gartner Quadrant, not a tremendous amount of activity, right? And so as we think about what's happened over the last 8-9 years from a system advancement standpoint, the reason we kind of introduced the timeline as the faster horses era is we actually started seeing systems evolve and advance, but really not a game-changing, tipping point, better method, solution, or platform really surfaced for our entire industry to consume. Whether you're a shipper, whether you're a 3PL, non-asset carrier, whether you're a technology provider and or an asset carrier. And so again, that kind of leads us into where we are today. So we'll continue to unpack what we mean by a better methods era, right? So as we move down, one thing we want to introduce is logistics mobile intelligence. So we know the industry, the last thing our industry needs is just another mobile app, right? But as we saw on the timeline, we saw where platforms in our industry evolve from just a single mode to multi-mode, right? So TMS, WMS, ERP, they advanced across multiple segments, multiple vertical markets, and on a global scale. And one of the things as we kind of move into the more intelligent system that we're going to introduce to the industry, one of the things that we really felt like we needed to do is introduce a mobile capability to the industry that crossed all carrier types, that essentially checked all the boxes from a core component perspective. And then we built in some intelligence, and so we'll unpack that. So as we think about what does mobile represent from a core component standpoint, it goes back to a lot of the industry big topics. It comes into visibility, right? There's driver shortage, capacity visibility, there's shipment lifecycle visibility, there's workflow visibility, right? So from an app perspective, when you contemplate if you're in the white glove home delivery business versus just a full truckload move, you need capability so you're not downloading or you're not requesting your drivers to download multiple apps on the one device. But the big thing that makes what we're introducing here just on the mobile checkbox is we essentially created, and we want the industry to start thinking about self-service and on-demand data consumption and on-demand business workflow management, right? And so one of the components here, and what makes the app super intelligent, is all of you, right? Whether you're a shipper, whether you're a non-asset carrier or an asset carrier, you have the ability to infuse your organization's business processes, your data element requirements that may or may not look the same as the database structure that a technology provider makes available to you when they introduce the app. And so we're super pumped up about delivering an app that's neutral to all layers of our industry and is very consumable and very IT friendly. So here's the platform and the big terminology, right? So here's the better method, or what we kind of term in Henry Ford's world is the car. So we want our industry thinking about platforms as a logistics expert system. We have a lot of great systems in the industry, but one of the things that as we contemplate those systems, they need to be more intelligent. They need to have the ability to prevent organizations from managing through the slow leaking tire that when you go to a board meeting or a management meeting 90 days later, you start seeing data and elements and customer service topics, in operational topics, carrier relations topics, sales topics. Pick a department anywhere in your organization, and you start thinking, well, man, why does my team of really smart people not think about and focus on and bring to our attention some of these slow leaks in our tire? Hence, our mission in the big statement of enabling our organization and our industry to operate as the most perfect version of itself at all times. So as you see here, there's some components that drive the LES, which are all our industry legacy systems. We had to create an acronym for homegrown systems because those still exist quite often. Those are the HGS. But freight management system, rate management system, warehouse management system, TMS. So as we contemplate that's a big component of what creates and makes a logistics expert system. If we're going to advance the industry forward, we know that there's just zero chance that we could introduce a concept, a platform, and a solution that would require any organization to actually migrate away from all of their legacy systems, right? That's just, it's not going to happen. So what we did, empowered by Ty, is created an upgrade path that's super IT friendly, that every organization, regardless of system, has the ability to consume. And your IT guys aren't going to get super upset when you bring the integration to the table. So we touched on logistics, mobile intelligence. Integration intelligence, again, big topic in the industry. A lot of great providers around integration. Feeds automation, feeds data visibility, feeds lifecycle management of a shipment and a supply chain. There are methods for integration. There are EDI capabilities, API capabilities. So what makes integration intelligence intelligent is the ability to recognize where and when you have gaps in automation in your organization, and you have an individual or a resource like Ty that surfaces your most valuable areas to focus on where you need to deploy some of those integration capabilities across the organization. Business intelligence, everyone's super familiar with that. Most organizations have implemented business intelligence, and so that's obviously a component that makes up a logistics expert system. It makes the reporting, the dashboarding way more intelligent. Big topic for us here is consulting intelligence. So again, we see a lot of organizations around the industry bring in resident experts, subject matter experts, but the problem with that is when they come into the organization, they're there for a short period of time, your organization continues to evolve. And so as we pack in consulting intelligence powered by Ty into a logistics expert platform, you have the ability to allow consulting intelligence to continue to evolve and learn your environment, so that resource never leaves, right? They never take a vacation, which I'm a fan of Ty of working 24/7, 365. And so the last component is artificial intelligence, right? So there's a lot of conversation around machine learning, artificial intelligence. And so what we did is we created a platform here and a mechanism where our industry can now start thinking about a database, an operating system, any legacy system, where it can truly become a way more intelligent solution stack, right? And we understand from succession planning, as you hire really smart people into the organization, there's just kind of no way that people can contemplate the millions of scenarios that occur in your organization as you evolve on an ongoing basis. And so we wanted to create help, right? We wanted to create the perfect employee for every organization across our industry. And so with that, maybe before I get scolded again, I'll let Ty talk a little bit more about himself. And so it's going to take about 3 or 4 minutes. And these are some of the big topics that they're not all the topics, but there's some of the big topics that we felt that would be beneficial for each of you to hear in terms of what we're thinking, how we're thinking about approaching these various areas. So before I get scolded about my golf selection, club selection anymore, we'll hear from Ty. And, the last thing is we definitely want to kind of put a stake in the ground from an LES perspective, right? We believe there's the potential to have, humbly enough, but also from a confidence perspective, we would love to see a quadrant created for LES. We just think it's a different platform, it's a different type of platform, and that the entire industry can start consuming and they can start upgrading their organization's intelligence so that any system they're running today just enables their company to become way more proactive and way more intelligent. So you've kind of quasi-met Ty.
Thank you, Spencer. Good morning again, everyone. As we conclude our keynote conversation this morning, I am going to highlight a few practical and relevant examples on how we can help enable your organization to become the most perfect version of itself at all times. Please listen intently over the next few minutes as we unpack a few of these items. Maximization of revenues and profitability. Our logistics expert system will contemplate your organization's budget, P&L, and balance sheet along with the millions of scenarios that impact your organization. There are several hot topics circling our industry today that all point back to maximizing revenues and profits. I will address a few of these topics and how I am going to help. Proactive versus reactive at all times. Organizations throughout our industry in their boardrooms and on conference calls continue discussing the topic of how to become more proactive versus reactive in every area of their business. I am here to deliver this reality for you. Resource capacity enhancement. Think about it. As I enable all of your employees and resident experts to focus on the right things versus the trivial and mundane tasks and activities they tend to get pulled into on a daily basis. I will not only identify and manage these trivial areas increasing existing resource capacity, I will also surface the larger, more important items for existing staff members to focus on. Succession planning. Many organizations are faced with how they are going to properly handle and put in place the correct succession plans for an aging, experienced, and intelligent workforce when they move into retirement. I never take a vacation, I never sleep, and more importantly, I will never retire, which will provide a practical solution to succession planning. Employee turnover. Organizations have resident subject matter experts who leave and oftentimes take a position elsewhere for their next career advancement. This leaves organizations with a void in skill set, knowledge, expertise, and capabilities. I will never turn in my 2-week notice to you. External consulting and professional services expenses. With our logistics expert system, we see the industry shifting to a state where the millions of dollars organizations spend on external logistics expert consulting does not have to exist, and the consulting intelligence never leaves. We see organizations hire external experts to come in and learn their systems, processes, and their existing staff skill sets. These consultants bring their industry knowledge and experiences from having worked with other organizations, many of which you compete with directly in your respective markets. They have to learn your environment and then charge you heavily for recommendations on where and how to make improvements. If hired to help execute, will help execute. Once the projects are complete, they move on to the next project, and your organization continues to evolve and advance forward. We have a better method for this. I will deliver consulting intelligence within the walls of your organization and will never leave. The longer I am there, the smarter and more productive I become for you. We see the elimination of communication gaps between your staff, your customers, your suppliers, and your carriers, further supporting a more proactive environment. I take real-time action when I see that any task has not been followed up on, and I am able to take preventative action on things before they become a problem through my predictive learning engine. There is so much more we will discuss. Let's get to work. Spencer, tell Watson I said hello. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, thank you, Ty. We appreciate your time, everyone. Hope everybody has a super productive conference this week. And again, thanks to the I for Transport staff for making this a great event for everybody.